Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the A4Q Testing Summit 2023. In this session, we'll be speaking to Martin Klonk. Just a little bit about his background. Martin studied electrical engineering and business in Berlin and started as a professional tester in IT in the mid-90s. Since then, he has stayed passionate about the testing profession. He's also a member of the Austrian Testing Board since 2010, and then 2023 he became the president. Today's presentation, Martin will be taking us through what is the reality of IT projects in Austria. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Leonie. So welcome this morning. Maybe you see this video only later in the day or even weeks after, but yeah, welcome in my talk about agile testing. What is actually a buzzword? So you might, just the idea why I'm talking about this is that often in projects or when we meet in coffees and talk about things, people come up with, yeah, we do agile testing. And it's like I have breakfast in the morning. Okay, not everybody has breakfast in the morning, but I know that my Indian colleague or even my Serbian colleagues would do the breakfast differently and completely differently, and I might not like every breakfast. And the same is with agile testing. And just so that made me a little bit suspecting that people just say, hey, we are agile and we're doing it correctly, instead of looking what they're really doing and whether it's appropriately. So I started then just to look at projects around me. So this is not a representative. I didn't send out questionnaires and try to make it representative. So World Quality Report you should read by yourself. But I think if you look close to things, you get more, let's say, more authentic view on things instead of asking management what they think about their projects. So let me put it more, maybe I should talk a little bit about me. Yes, who I am. I'm sure most of you don't know me personally. I'm the president of the Austrian Testing Board at the moment. Hope I will be for quite a while. I'm doing testing since I left university, and I think I've seen a lot of testing. I did a lot, even load performance, maybe in security test. I really wasn't working myself, and I assisted a bit, but not really in. But all the rest of different branches I worked in. Yes, I wrote a book like people that are doing about agile testing. And for true, agile was a buzzword in the early 2000s to declare there's something different in spirit and you have to rethink testing. And I was a favorite of it. And really, I'm in agile testing since 2 decades now. And now really thinking of, should we talk about agile testing really? About where I'm based on, as I told you, me personally, I'm a German, but living since 2 decades in Austria, and I love to live there. And Vienna in special is an interesting city. So it's still having increasing inhabitants. And the funny thing about Vienna, as small metropoles in Europe, we have a third of non-nationals like me. I'm still a German national, even I'm living in Austria, because in the European Union it doesn't mean much now to change the nationality. And for sure we have a lot of students, a good university, a good technical university, and 24% of the employees are working in IT. Okay, I don't know, the city of Vienna counted that there are around 60,000 dogs. I found that funny, really, that because you have to register a dog if you have a dog in Vienna. But what's interesting, Vienna is not bad in the European Digital City Index. So this encloses not only the employees in IT, but Vienna is quite IT minded, to put that way. Maybe not the best in, but yeah, a lot of aspects count in this index. So it's from the IT perspective a quite interesting city. Sorry to stay that long. Now get to our topic. First question: what is Agile? I will not enumerate much more, so I did my jokes here. But Agile is such a lot of things that are completely different, as I told you with the breakfast. People have breakfast, for sure, but the way they have breakfast, the time they have breakfast is completely different. The purpose of it, yeah, finally you want to have a working software at the end. Not all achieve it, but there's so much aspects about IT. I don't want to discuss that too much in detail. I want to stay rather on the topic of testing. What is an agile tester and what should an agile tester know? So really, I wrote books about that, but to be honest, it's a lot. And at first of all, you should be familiar with self-organizing teams. I think that's about something about Agile that we forgot that some of us are not fit for this. We have to deal in a lot of Agile teams that they accept it, that they buy in a way in an Agile team, but it's not their way of working. To be self-organizing, find out, discussing with each other, being a team, is not everybody's darling. So this is something an agile tester must still be, because as a tester in agile teams, I come on it later, you must be extremely good in a team to communicate, because you're not everybody's darling in the team. So this is something very crucial in agile and might lead that a lot of people are feeling uncomfortable with agile teams. For sure, you have to understand how they make their requirements engineering. So you don't get big books, you get just small texts, and you should rather then discuss on it. And if you're somebody who don't like big discussions or communications in a sprint planning, you might feel uncomfortable as well. Thinking on test levels. In agile projects, normally test levels are not really lived. They exist, but maybe test quadrants like defined by Eliza Crispin and Janet Gregory could help more to understand what you should do. I hope you're familiar with test quadrants. I mean, they don't replace test level, but they replace maybe the V model thinking. What's very important, you see that, is to get along with continuous integration, continuous delivery, and to have ideas how to buy into DevOps thinking. What is not always easy, because DevOps doesn't tell you that there's testing in that. Some said there's test in the middle missing, but I think DevOps is quite okay. But continuous integration until DevOps, there's a lot of uncertainty, not clear plans you have to cope with. And to be flexible in all. Test objectives are changing. So today we try to do this, then we come up with, oh, that's not working, we will do it differently. Some said regression test is much important, but even regression test must be adapted. And what always is important, automate that regression test. And that often some testers said, look, I'm a good tester. I have a spirit of tester. I'm good in a team. But this programming stuff for automation, that makes me nervous. So if is an agile tester, again, this, And the funny thing about Agile is you must be familiar with non-functional testing. Doing a load and performances, at least know how you should do it. Doing security, at least scanning security issues. Maybe it's not the same person, but you should be familiar with this. Because you don't have those separate roles or departments that are responsible for things. So Agile Tester is quite a demanding role if you look at it. So this is the theory. What is the practice behind that? To be honest, I make a small break here. If I'm talking about a good tester, in all my projects I assisted in the last decades, the best tester is always the business professional behind that. That's funny to think because of somebody who's a professional in testing, who gave trainings in testing, says the best tester is the one just in business who is doing all day business and maybe some days in his lifetime a bit testing. And therefore, we must be careful if we say, hey, an agile tester, maybe those are agile testers, but as you see with the disadvantages of those testers, they might be too impatient. The systematically, if you very flexibly, you need a systematic, not to get lost in the, maybe you will with agile, if you're too flexible, no objectives, you will lose those testers. They want to have a strict, so think of a business tester doing this job of this lady in a supermarket, and then be told next week, we will send you to the central and there you should help people to test a new supermarket software. And this person certainly knows what she wants from this software. But if you come with, oh, we do a daily this morning, hey, what's my duty? What's my role? Where are my package to do? Give me my package like in the supermarket. The people put it on, this is my role. And the problem is you will lose often an agile project those persons. Some feel comfortable, for sure. Others, absolutely not. They say, give me a duty, say what I should test, I will test it, and then come back. The problem with paperwork, I will come back to it later. Paperwork is somewhat. Look at the management. So you might know this annual report that Capgemini Society is doing. They really ask a lot of, quite representative, lot of managers. If you look who they are maybe people they are not really in the project, rather they are having ruling a department or something like this. What they think about what's needed. That's not wrong, but maybe not in detail in the project. But they tell you something. If I need a good test, what gets my agility fast? And agility is something good, you know? They don't know exactly what it is, but they say cross-functional skills. The best thing I can hire is somebody who knows everything a bit. Look, you have to read these statistics of the word quality very careful. That means that in that case, 63% of the asked persons said this topic is important, and others means that about 40% told, okay, that's not important. So we should be careful, but the majority said this is important. And the next thing is this business domain knowledge. They say, look, professional test is fine, but I need those business experts. So this supports really, because a lot of business knowledge you don't get in a few months. And so let's keep the statistic here, but most of it, it's not typical agile. It's just good work. Know about the topic, being adaptive to the situation, whatever the situation might be. Maybe they're not agile, but I could put you some statistics that most say we are now agile, and agile gave us so much better credibility and stability and so on. So the funny thing is most think they are agile. So what I did then, so I'm living in Vienna. So if in Vienna you want to know something, you go into a coffee house, you meet somebody, or yeah, and you talk about this. This is a way of Vienna not to make questions, just to talk about things. And that's what I did. I invited, yeah, partners to say, hey, how is your project working? And the problem about this is I cannot put you here names on this. Say in this project or this customer, they won't allow me. So I can only say, okay, I have heard. Sorry for that, because I cannot, but I think as a president of the Austrian Testing Board, I had a good network to get projects out of it. Maybe you did notice that I worked for Sixantics, test automation company, and really we have a lot of representative customers in Austria we do test automation for, and we do it good, to be honest. And even from these customers, I know a lot of project, and I asked, okay, we're doing this automation project in your company, but how is it going in the other projects? And this is what came out. I have 5 topics. Let's look into detail and see what hit me when I talked to. And I think first of this, if you ask, are you rather traditional or not? It's something like, hey, where are you from? Where are you living? If even most will say we're kind of hybrid. We're not really agile, but if you look at it, but then I asked them, hey, look, then tell me what's agile and what's not agile. And they came with a lot of arguments, but always for agile. Say we're doing this, yeah, we have dailies, we have iterative, some living Scrum, some are rather, yeah, like Kanban or just lean. Some thinking big of safe and less, and yeah, but they practicing this. This is not that they just doing, yeah, we should do something. And what's really hitting all doing DevOps. Okay, is DevOps agile or not? But DevOps is an interesting aspect. Let's call it an agile aspect. They go live several times a year. Okay, you could say in traditional projects you do that yourself, but we are saying they go live. That doesn't mean the iterations are only 3 or 4 times a year, but this is the iteration that goes live. In sprint, you would talk about a potential shippable product, but here we're talking about the product they go live. In internet companies, they do daily even. Okay, the funny thing about that is that they had professional testers. So I had a lot of discussion with colleagues. They told me about Scrum, Safe, whatever. They don't want a professional tester because then the quality responsibility depends on one person or 2. They want that everybody is responsible for quality from the start on. And I love this idea, but the practice is different. Most teams are crying for a professional tester, saying we need somebody in the team who is organizing that stuff for us. I'm a developer. I'm not keen in defining test cases. I come on that defining test cases later. That's annoying. I don't like this. So they need a professional tester in the team. Most have it. They have even test managers, project leaders as well. So, and they have test levels, several, really going, because the infrastructure is quite complex. They need the test levels, they test on different integration levels, for sure. And this is not an agile team can do for himself. So they had quite complicated systems to arrange this testing on different test levels. And management in all projects will ask next year, how much testing do you need? So you have to make plans saying, okay, we will have this in functionality, we will have this, and that might cost. Okay, the simplest is give me the cost of the whole project. 1/3 is testing. Look, they ask often for much more details. How much test experts, how much business experts will you need, and so on and so on. So even they are doing agile iterative sprints, they have to make a first plan. That's nothing about agile. But still, the rest is agile. And the traditional roles all exist. A project manager, test manager, super test manager, test coordinator, whatever levels of hierarchy you have in big companies. The funny thing, when I talk to Korean or Japanese colleagues, they told me, yeah, agile is something fashionable there. We don't have this really. How comes this? They say they wouldn't say hybrid. They would say no, agile is something fashionable. Today we work in some other colors, but we are okay with what we do because they're living agile since that's in their culture. I would tell, but they would never call it agile. So this is a funny story about at the edge. Next thing about automation. Brilliant. If I look back 30 years, what test automation was, this was something fancy. Like today is KI and testing. Um, um, the problem about this is we're still unsatisfied with this. Extremely unsatisfied. There's a lot of opportunity you can do this time and this, but always people say yes, but the problem is the flexibility. There's not much flexibility in test automation. But okay, I'm in a company that do test automation. They're really specified and we help projects to come out of this situation. And we're doing this really. I don't want to make too much publicity. I guess there's some competitors that can as well. But if you can do a good project, but still people are kind of unsatisfied. Something is still feeling it's complicated and something. It's less about what's really working, depending, but it can happen. There was a funny thing. A colleague told me we were working for the same customer, and I did a project that was going into test automation and saying, we should automate more because other projects in our company, they have a constant pipeline and each night they're doing automated testing constantly. And this is so brilliant. And we don't have even automated test case. Okay, so we started test automation. And then a colleague came to me who's responsible for this nightly pipeline because he's rather in the CI/CD stuff, doing automated deployment processes where and he said, look, there's a problem. There's so much automation jobs running in the night and they're failing all. Not technically, but the test case fail. So the test can run, but fails and nobody looks at it. So other projects had automated one day and then came up, maintenance. Yes, it's failing. We know why it's failing, but we don't give a damn. So this is reality. Often in automation, we automate and then the maintenance is annoying because we know now it's running and. So test automation is still something that is used, but maybe not perfectly. So the next thing, predefined test cases. Ask business experts about that. They will tell you, look, I know what I have to test, but I won't define you a single test case. This kind of paperwork I don't like. Lastly, in a project, somebody told me when I showed him, okay, a test case is, okay, we were talking really about end-to-end processes. They run usually half an hour. Several messages going in, going out, saying yes, and some triggers. And I showed them the steps and said, look, this is the way the test case should be defined because we have to know which message has to go out and what should be verified. And he told me, look, I give a damn on that kind of stuff. I know what you want to test, the title, and then give it to me and I will tell you whether it's working. So this is really agile. I love it, but the problem is test automation needs that stuff of definition, and regression test sets are not always tested by the same testers. So a lot of agile projects reported to me that they said, okay, the paperwork we need. So they have big 5,000 test cases defined, manual test cases. Yeah. Okay. This is paperwork, and they were predefined. We're not talking that they just typed it in and said, hey, we will test it. They were predefined. Somebody did test analysis. So the good old black box testing techniques. One certain thing that didn't change since the last decades, the testers feel uncomfortable. Test is a problem in a project. always a problem. Yeah. Look, not all agile teams are like this. There are exceptions, to be honest. There are really exceptions. But if I look on the general, what came up to me, that's the tester said, look, the problem is, okay, I always talk to test managers or testers. So, but they said, I feel uncomfortable. It's so hard to explain people why we have to analyze things before testing, why we have to document our test results, and why we have to automate that stuff. And the problem is developers often want to say, look, we are agile, we are responsible for quality, and we think quality from the first. There are teams, I've seen them, and they're lovely, and they're really doing test-driven development, fine, perfect, really thinking that are rather exceptions, to be honest, but they're existing. The next thing is, even if they do that way, they forgot that all these upper test levels need completely different stuff of testing, even the approval by business experts. And so they forget that there's more on quality than just what they are thinking. If you ask a developer, he's thinking, look, I'm doing a lot of tests, and then he shows me this unit test and tell, look, so this is funny, but this is a validation you're programming here. And there are this, I'm showing then a decision table, for instance. Or we make a state transition analysis, and then I'm showing, look, this you can test. Okay, so there's a big gap in it, and testers feel uncomfortable. The last thing is what I expect, often those specialists like test analysts, like whatever, business analysts and so on, often they are engaged in several projects, and you just rent them for 20%. And they always are overloaded because they are so specialist, so important. I mean, they're lovely. They're really doing their business, but they cannot decide what should I do first. If they get up in the morning, they have to decide for themselves what's most important for 4 or 5 projects in one time. And this is that project managers or product owner cannot tell how they contribute. Do they really contribute as they should? You rented him 20%. Do you get 20% of his work? And I saw that they do rather the work, somebody is crying behind there. And this is not a team-focused approach then. So maybe home office contributed to it, I'm not sure. But the problem is if people are not focused on one project, and they are not really, maybe not really agile. But this is a practice I see often. Okay, I want to bother you with this. So finally, if I look back 30 years, I love Agile, I'm sure. But did it really change? I suppose not. There's something that changed. I listed it here. The small iterations, that is an advantage. It's difficult, but it's an advantage. Being closer to the business professionals, that is very important. We manage this. The quality from the beginning to think, but it's often not respected, to be honest. The different test automation, test techniques, and then the mood to be self-organizing in a team. What's not always easy and has his problems, but you have professionals that help in that. Even we as test automators do that. We have, so like me, professionals that go to the customer, help them to self-organize so in order we can do a good test automation. And a simple but effective business analysis that is close to the testers, by the way. And most important, shift left early frequent feedback. This is, so it's often not reached, but we have these best practices. Finally, Why do I need to talk about Agile? So there are good and bad practice, and we should talk about this. What means shift left? How can you reach it? How can you buy into DevOps? How can you have a good test automation? Or what is self-organizing best that test objects can be met? Whether it's agile or non-agile, it's not important. And finally, as I wrote on the last, so Stephanie on the German stream is talking about the new syllabus. We decided not to have two syllabi for agile and non-agile, but to merge it. And I think that was a good idea. So thank you for listening. I'm open to your questions now, so feel free to ask me.
Yes, please drop your comments down below for Martin. He's more than happy to answer them for you. And just a small reminder, you can vote for Martin as your favorite speaker today at the A4Q on the A4Q website. So do that right away if you've enjoyed Martin's presentation. Martin, we have a question here that says, is it accurate to say that the projects you reviewed would be described as agile projects?
No. Thank you for this question. No, because they would always say yes, but if I would ask the opposite around, they would say, no, we're not traditional. No, 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 no. And therefore, I made this speech because I said, yeah, whether agile or no, that doesn't give you sure. No, they would never tell we're clean, agile. Some did, yes, but still they have the same problems. But most of them said yes, but.
Okay, great. I hope that answered the question. Another one here speaks about DevOps. I noted that you did mention a little bit about DevOps in your presentation, but is it relevant to the topic here of Agile?
I think DevOps is quite relevant because it's about the organization of the whole stuff. And systems are merging more and more together. So if you change one system, you might have a problem really on the other edge of the company. And therefore, I think to work together with operations and have constant integration is very important. But regarding my presentation, I would tell it's rather like, yes, it's a good practice. And we still don't know what is DevOps. That was an idea. And now we have to find something to put it in practice. And therefore, yeah, it's not that relevant, but it's still an aspect that tells you, look, whether DevOps or Agile, but DevOps is a good idea, but you have to discuss how to have a good practice to make it working in the daily life.
Thanks, Martin. We've got another one here. What about testing cloud services? Is that a typical Agile domain?
In my past opinion, it was, because I thought, look, think of Google or Crossing. I had a good colleague he was saying, look, we are deploying each time. Yeah, we can that. We have a cloud service, but the problem is then I worked for a company that did several services to get measurements together. That was rather embedded systems, and they weren't at all really agile. They had to, but it's not. So I'm not sure whether this is really an agile domain. Continuous integration, DevOps, maybe yes, but whether really agile, I'm not sure, because engineering, electronic engineering, or whatever has completely different levels, and they need certain levels that might be not agile.
Okay, that's right. I think we have another question coming up. There's been so much talk about AI and everything that's going on. Are project managers, test managers really needed in the future? What is your opinion on that?
I would love to tell that self-organizing teams don't need a project manager or test manager. They organize themselves, but the problem is between each other have first problems to talk with each other. And actually, I'm a test manager in a big project with several teams, and I have a lot to do, and they love to have a test manager, and the same to project managers. So I think this is still existing and tells us that Agile is an idea. Okay, Kanban would tell we never told that the test manager. This is rather about Scrum-related projects and bigger ones like less. But self-organizing needs people that generally provide management with the needed actions and so on. Bigger projects still will need that.
Okay, great. And then, yeah, thank you so much. You spoke so passionately about Agile today. We really, it was really nice to have you with us, Martin.
Thank you, Leonie.
Again, if anyone would like to vote for Martin as your favorite speaker, please do so at the A4Q Summit website. I think I'll definitely vote.
Please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Please, everyone, there's more sessions coming. Stay tuned for those. Thanks.